Welcome to the Powered with Love podcast, the podcast that brings to you what's working on the coalface from people within our community who are defying the odds. The podcast that gives you the ability to power your life with love. I'm the host, Stephen Cromedy, and let's get stuck into today's edition. I guess a little bit of background on Chad from LawRep is that in just the last 36 months alone, you've been involved in some way or shape or form in over 800 conveyancing matters. In addition to that, you're a qualified lawyer, so you've got that extra knowledge attached to other areas within the law, so you can follow and provide a full tailored service, not only in the area of conveyancing, but making sure you're providing the right legal advice at the right time. So Chad, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on board. I guess the first question I have of you is this. A lot of people put a lot of energy and time into selecting the right agent when they decide to sell a home. Now, when I'm buying and selling, is it equally important to put the same amount of thought into choosing the right conveyancer?
Yeah, definitely. It's something that I think a lot of people just look and say, I need a conveyancer, but you've got to make sure you have the right conveyancer. And we're seeing a lot of that now, especially with sort of market opening up a lot more buyers out, properties exchanging on weekends. You need to have someone that's open on those weekends in order to successfully get your contract exchanged. I see it a lot where people go either cheap conveyancer or a very traditional law firm that close at 5 o'clock Monday to Friday, and they're just missing out on a lot of deals over the weekends, missing out on buyers. And I guess the end goal is to sell your home. That's why we're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to ensure that those matters on the weekend can get exchanged. So it's very important for someone to put the effort in and make sure that they've got obviously the right agent, but the right lawyer, in the same way you have the right mortgage broker, pest and building inspector, strata records inspector as well.
Could it be true to say that you should almost put more time in deciding who you're going to use from that perspective? Because ultimately, you know, from a seller's perspective, a lot of energy, a lot of time goes into preparing the home for sale. A lot of emotion goes into agonizing over finding that perfect purchaser. And from a purchaser's perspective, a lot of time invested, a lot of energy, a lot of emotion as well in finding the right property, sometimes to end up in competition, to then only fall foul on both sides of the fence in seeing that deal not only, and you know, it's not, we shouldn't really refer to it as a deal, but in this instance, seeing the confirmation of that sale not only happening, but completed as well, you know. What's some of the pitfalls that people should be looking out for that amount in these things not transpiring or being completed?
Yeah, I think that's very true. Occasionally we have deals that just don't get together, and a lot of the time the agent's done an amazing job, both the purchaser and vendor have. We're trying to make sure we can help get it together so our client can buy or sell. And we have what I like to call SPOs, or sales prevention officers. It's just lawyers getting in the way. And truthfully, they're coming from a great place and thinking they're protecting their client. But sometimes they just take it too far and end up, I guess, they forget what the end goal is, which is to help the client buy or sell. Yes, making sure you advise them throughout the process, but then finding solutions. And I think a lot of them now are going, well, I say don't do this for these 15 reasons, but they don't give their client a solution. And I think that's probably the most important thing. It's something that we work on in our meetings each day is whenever we have a problem, what's the solution that we can give to the client to get around it? It's not always going to happen, but at least you can give them some information to make an informed decision about whether to proceed or not. So I think having someone, availability is very important, someone quite experienced. We've got conveyancers and lawyers that work at our firm, so it's good having sort of a mix of opinions coming in, and there's a lot of experience there. So I think just having someone with good depth of knowledge, but also other people they can bounce ideas off to make sure you can give them solutions to get the transaction together.
So it sounds like to me we need to make sure with someone that is available first and foremost.
Yeah, definitely.
And you're saying that availability is key. The second thing is that depth of knowledge, having that complete understanding around not only experience in having come across any of those idiosyncrasies or challenges throughout the process, but being able to focus on solutions rather than being, as you call it, that sales prevention officer. And it's funny because from an agent's perspective, and having done it for 20 years, here's what I always see. I see someone sitting in a chair giving an opinion on a property they haven't even taken the time to go and see for their client, to then see that property sell to someone else straight after them, with complete transparency, with them understanding what it was that person never proceeded with. And quite often as the agent, you're left standing there feeling sorry for that person because they're taking the advice from the lawyer or the conveyancer, who quite typically their area of expertise is giving advice on the contract, not giving advice on the property. And I tend to find they step over that mark without having a look at the property. Yeah. What's your level of commitment that you provide to your clients in those type of scenarios?
Yeah, well, I think it's very important to go out and see the property. Just like you said, we've had a few matters in the past where we've sort of been arguing closer to settlement, and that's one of the things I think is very good to have not only conveyancers but lawyers working in the same office, because when you do get to that stage where it could potentially go towards litigation, you can have a lawyer go, well, this is what probably could happen. Let's make sure we can do what we can now to avoid that, or at least set things up that we're in the best position when it gets to that. So, for instance, we had one where there was some issues about development approvals. The other side's conveyancer was just sending emails back and forth. I decided to go out to the property, have a look at it, give the conveyancer a call and say, I've just been out there. It's a very minor issue. Let's solve it this way, and then call counsel and fold it up from there. And I think we probably saved the client about $6,500 just from that, going out to the property, seeing it, because then we had a very different perspective to the other side's conveyancer who'd stayed in the office. So I think it's very important when required to go out and see the property when you can, if there isn't sort of other avenues that you could take. That's our guarantee to most clients. It's just, if you need it, we'll do what we need to do. Same as going and seeing them to sign documents and things like that. I guess it's our role just to make things as easy as possible. Same as the agent, it's just they could do all this themselves, or they could try. But this is to take a lot of the burden off them and help them through the process as much as possible.
Well, selling and purchasing a home, it's not something someone does every day. No. So they're at a heightened emotional state. What they're crying out for is guidance. What they're crying out for is that level of expertise that's going to guide them through making the decisions that they feel are going to keep them safe or help guide them in seeing what it is they need to see, because quite often someone can be really emotionally charged and something sometimes can seem a lot bigger than what it is. So if you're that stereotypical service provider sitting in the chair talking to a client at an emotional state where they're heightened, well, then if you're being influenced by them, that counsel, that professional conduct that they're seeking for has been negated. And at that point, you're not providing any value to that client.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're influencing your judgment.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Chad, I really think that's an important part to focus on. So if we were to just summarize this as to what value, what services someone should bring to the table, let's start off on contracts and contract reviews. What should someone be looking for when they're engaging these services?
Yeah, in terms, I guess, from the vendor side of things and getting a contract prepared, there's a lot of places, a lot of law firms that sort of I've seen in the past that will charge not only for the cost of the contract. If it's an out-of-pocket expense, it's understandable that the vendor would need to pay that at some stage, but then tacking on a $500 contract preparation fee, which I think is just ridiculous. I've seen others that every time they issue a new contract, they charge $250 to the client, and I just don't think it's right. It's our role to get people ready for, I guess, their sale. So at LawRep, we basically order the contract on the client's behalf, and they only have to pay the out-of-pocket expenses if they don't proceed, and they can pay that at 3 months or whenever they like. I've seen some, I guess, lawyers, conveyancers is taking advantage by charging that contract preparation fee when it's something that sort of our role to try and help out. And then in terms of the purchase side of things, it's, again, getting the conveyancer or solicitor to do the contract review for you. A lot of places will again charge that upfront fee, but we find sort of want to help the clients out. And if we're charging an upfront fee, clients then say, oh, I'll leave that till the last minute. And then sometimes it's too late and they miss out completely. So the way that we've set up the firm, we do those complimentary just to help clients through. And then if they don't proceed, there's no charge at all. But there are a lot of places out there that, will just charge as much as they can up front. And I think it's to the client's detriment because they end up delaying getting the legal advice that they need.
I like how you've dovetailed that, that you, from your perspective, is to the client's detriment because they then delay that part of the process because they're worried about those out-of-pocket expenses. I think that's great advice, Chad, suggesting that, hey, in my questioning of identifying which professional I'm going to choose, talk about the area of contracts, ask some questions about what's the costs for these services, when are you seeking payment, because I think that's going to be a telltale sign as to what level of service and what the expectations will be moving forward. And yes, there needs to be a monetary element attached to the service that's being provided. But hey, this is a time where we're crying out for guidance. If it's going to be purely transactional right from the very start, that's probably what we can expect all the way through.
Yeah,
and that's not going to be that person that's going to get out of their chair to go and see that property. It's not going to be that person who's going to come and see you after hours to come and help you exchange a contract or secure a property. It's going to be the person that's going to bill you for everything along the way.
Yeah, definitely. And it's something I think that a lot of places, I'll do that contract review and go, oh, good, I've got paid for it. Therefore, when all these issues arise, they go, oh, well, I don't really want to try and work out a solution to help get this across the line. Where for us, we're sitting there going, well, we've done all this work for the client. Let's try and help them get an exchange. If we can't, we won't. But we're willing to go sort of, a bit above and beyond to ensure that they can get an exchange if they can. So I think a lot of it, we're always looking for the solution to get an exchange because that's what the client wants. And if it's in their best interest, we can try and work that out.
Okay. So if I'm a purchaser, what's the three major things I should be doing to not only secure a property, but I should be following in the process to make sure that I'm protecting myself?
Yeah, definitely. So I always think it's important. It saves not only the legal representative a lot of time, but the client a lot of time, and the agents as well, is putting an offer down. I think a lot of people sit back, do their due diligence, look at their contract, get pests and buildings, strata records, sort their finance out. They don't let the agent know that they actually are interested in the property by putting a formal offer in writing. So I always say to clients, if you're happy with the property, put an offer forward. At least then the agent knows to come back to you, hopefully, if there's other offers that are higher and you can still be in the game in terms of buying it. So I think that's probably the most important step. Once you put that offer down, you can start then basically getting your contract reviewed, getting your pests and building. If you're in strata records inspection is very important, and getting your finance sorted. So we're seeing a lot of the time clients are doing these in stages. I think it's always best to do them all at once. Send your offer forward, get the solicitor's details to the agent so they can send the contract, get the contract to the mortgage broker so they can get a valuation booked, get the pest and building inspector in there as soon as possible. So I think, they always work quite simultaneously, but I think getting that offer forward in writing is probably the best start.
Okay. What's the importance of exchanging contracts? Why should I do it? Yep. Why shouldn't I do it?
Yes. So we never give a recommendation either way to clients, and that's, I guess, our role isn't really to sort of sway them any way, but just to present, I guess, an informed opinion of where things are at. So I always say to clients, you can either exchange the contract, utilise the 5-day cooling off period if it's there, and then in those 5 days, do your due diligence, get your pest and building, sort your finance out. With finance timeframes at the moment, it's good to have a finance clause in there that runs past the 5 business days. Making sure that you can use those in the 5 business days. And if you pull out for some reason, you do lose the 0.25. So that's the reason not to. The good reason to do it is that if you don't exchange, it's always on the market. So I say to clients, I'm not recommending either way, but it's Friday afternoon, we can exchange this. It won't matter if there's a person over the weekend that really wants the property, you've got it. We can do the due diligence, we can try and seek some extensions if required, but you're in a very good seat. Or we can do all the due diligence, but if someone comes and offers $5,000 over the weekend extra, you're in a bidding war, it could cost you $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. So again, we don't recommend which one to go with, it's really up to the client, but that's probably the main reasons to exchange and the main reasons not. But a lot of clients, always found clients are very disappointed when they miss out on a property to another buyer, because it sort of comes out of nowhere. They go, oh, there's another buyer, we're in a bit of trouble, and they miss out. They're probably the most disheartened, whereas when clients have had to rescind, they always knew going into it they'd lose the 0.25. So it's something that they've been informed about throughout
Correct.
the process. So it's strange, they've lost 0.25, but they seem to be in a better position mentally of missing out on the property.
It's funny, I had a client, like as the principal of the business, every now and then someone thinks they're going to, I don't know, have some extra advantage by coming directly to me. So a week and a half ago, I had someone come directly to me who I've known for quite some time, and they asked me what they needed to do in order to secure a property. The very first thing I said, listen, get your solicitor to call me, and I'll talk to your solicitor about the benefit of presenting your offer on a contract with the deposit. If it's accepted, your risk is the 0.25% deposit, and it means the owners sold their property to you. The only person that can change their mind is yourself. Subsequently, that phone call wasn't made. 3 days later, another purchaser presented themselves. They phoned me again and said, what's the best advice you can give me? I said, the moment's passed. The advice was already given. The property is going to be sold to the person who is going to present to the owner the best terms and the best contract. I haven't yet received a phone call. Now, I'm third party in this because even though I own the agency, I didn't have the listing. I wasn't working with any purchaser.
Yep.
This was the comment made. The solicitor never called you because I don't think very fondly of agents, in particular agents who are suggesting you should present your offers on contracts or utilise the cooling off period. Subsequently, there's a sold sign on that property. They missed the property, and it was the best property for them. The disheartening thing in this is that the solicitor who gave this advice is not going to have to pay the extra $50,000 for the property in Cardiff that is now their second best option, is not going to be having to run a business out of the property, not in the optimum site, and isn't going to pay the price for any of the advice that he gave. What's your opinion on people that are giving advice that, not to take the advice of agents? They're not communicating with agents. They're not getting an understanding of the deal. Should I be wary of those type of service providers? And if so, why?
Definitely. I think traditionally it's been, I guess the sentiment is, it's the lawyer's job to get things exchanged. It's the agent to get the offer accepted. And as soon as you get the offer accepted, the agent goes to the side. I think traditionally that's sort of been the sentiment. It's something that was definitely drummed into me when I first started. And I just looked and thought, we've got a person who's got access to the vendor, the purchaser, that's put all this together, that's been with them from the start, that can really help. So again, in sort of setting up the values in my law firm, we looked and said, let's work collaboratively with everyone. Let's make sure that the agent's informed throughout. Let's put them in all correspondence. If we've got an issue, go to them first sometimes, because they've got a good connection with the purchaser, a good connection with the seller, and they can really, like the amount of sort of transactions that we've put together, because the agent has really jumped in and said, okay, I can help this out in a very quick time frame that would have taken weeks, solicitor to solicitor, is just astounding. So if you've got someone who's anti-agent, understand that they're anti you buying that property and they're going to get in the way and you could miss out.
And anti you selling the property.
Exactly.
So you would suggest that in your interview questions, you would be asking what someone's opinion is in working closely with the agent to help secure the property or sell the property.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay. And I think using the right questions, because especially when you're chatting to a service provider or legal representative from the start, if you say to them, oh, how do you work with agents? They're always going to say, great. I think getting people using the right language of the question would be more going to them and saying, oh, we're selling with this agent. What do you think about them doing an agent exchange? If you've got someone who's anti-agent exchange, they're anti-agent and they're most likely just going to get in the way of a deal. So I think making sure you ask the right question, because most service providers will say, oh, yeah, no, I'm good, until it gets down to it, and then you're just going to miss out.
From a seller's perspective, what should I be looking for with, legally having the right representation so I can get my property sold and I can be represented in the best possible light? And what's the benefits in signing a contract at the time of finding the purchaser? What's the disadvantages?
I think the biggest one for me, for anyone selling a property, is having someone that's not just available but open on the weekends. And I say the distinction because a lot of people say, oh yeah, I'll pick up the phone, or yes, I'll be available, but they're not open. That's why we're very clear on the fact that we're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because the amount of transactions that occur on weekends, and I guess some that get missed out because the vendor or solicitor is not available, is just astronomical. So it's probably the biggest thing for me is making sure you've got someone that's available after hours on weekends, or open after hours and on weekends, that can really pick up the phone to get things together. The only real pitfall is that you could have a better offer that potentially could come about in the next couple of days. But I usually always say to clients, I don't advise them on what offers to accept. It's more just, are you happy with this price? Then move ahead. I always think a bird in the hand is better. So the more you can keep a purchaser locked into a contract when I'm acting for the vendor is sort of our main goal. It's making sure we've got solutions at all points throughout as well to make sure we can keep them in, whether it's extending cooling off periods, finance clauses. Like we've had one recently where they've sort of got to make some amendments after exchange, and it's like, well, what do we need to do to make sure we keep this person in? You're happy with sort of signing the contract with them at that purchase price. Let's do what we can. So I think, the biggest thing, if you're happy with that person, exchange on with them or sign with them as soon as possible. And then the kind of, downside of it, if you don't, that person's still looking. It's amazing, the mentality that a buyer will have. As soon as they exchange on a property, they will not be looking elsewhere. They're solely focused on the one they've bought. They're thinking about moving in, how they're going to have their life, what renovations they might do. Where if you delay that by a couple of days, they're still thinking, oh, that would be good, but just in case, I'm going to go on to realestate.com. I'm going to look at other properties. And then all of a sudden, something pops up and they go, we had one instance over a weekend. We're acting for two different purchasers that wanted to exchange. Vendor solicitors weren't available. We're literally there ready to sign. And they said, I'll just wait till Monday when they come back in the office. And both of those clients looked at different open homes on the Sunday and exchanged on different properties on the following Monday. So not only that agent, but those two vendors missed out on selling their property because they didn't have someone who was open. And the purchasers had the mindset of, well, we may as well just go to this open home. We're already booked into it and we haven't exchanged on the other one. And they end up missing out on that property. So I think it's very important, if you've got someone, a buyer, you're happy with the price, just move through with him.
So it sounds like to me, I can summarize that beautifully. You need to find someone that is going to work in a collaborative nature between yourself and the agent, and ultimately trust the agent's advice. So when you're a purchaser, if you're being guided on how to present your offer and guided in such a manner that that's going to help you secure the property that you're after, well, you need to work with someone that's going to work with the agent in a collaborative manner. Yep. If you're selling the property, again, you need to work with someone that's going to work with your agent in a collaborative manner, because that person's there to protect you legally, not block the sale. They're there to make it happen, whichever side of the fence you're on.
Yeah.
Chad, you've provided some fantastic insights today, and I think you've provided some useful information that's going to serve both the purchaser and seller extremely well. And I think we can summarize this beautifully by nailing it down into a couple of points. So number one, the availability of the conveyancer or solicitor is extremely important. Yes. They need to be open on weekends. They need to have extended opening hours. Number two, what prices are they asking for their services attached to things like contract reviews and contract preparation? In your opinion, you're suggesting those type of things, contract reviews, should be complimentary.
Yes.
The ordering of specific documents should be at cost. And at that point, that will be a direct correlation to the character of the person that you're dealing with, because are these the people that will go and look at a property before they give you advice from their chair? So again, if you hit a roadblock, what are you going to do in relation to giving advice on this property if it were to involve looking at the property? Give me an example as to the last time you did that, please. So identifying, are they going to actually look at what they're advising you on?
Yeah.
And I guess last but not least is asking someone their belief on working in a collaborative way with the agent, whether or not they're buying or selling.
Yep.
So, Chad, thanks for that advice. It's certainly going to be an interesting topic that I think people will get a lot of value from.
Yeah.
And appreciate your time.
That's okay. Thanks for having me.
If you like what you've heard today, remember to subscribe and rate us on iTunes. If you discovered us on YouTube, remember, hit that bell so you can be notified when these new episodes become available. Leave a comment, and we look forward to bringing you the latest material that's going to power your life with love.